Hi, I am Terry Ironwood, author of the Great Forget Fantasy series. You are listening to Tale of the Manticore.
The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Tale of the Manticore, Season 3. Like the creature from which it takes its name, Tale of the Manticore is a mashup, a crossbreeding between two different species of storytelling. Here you will find the unpredictability of old-school paper and dice games with the storycraft of a dark fantasy novel. No character is sacred, and none will be spared if the dice decide their fate is at hand. According to lore, the tail of a manticore is barbed with cruel iron spikes. There will be much pain in the days ahead. Last time on Tale of the Manticore. In Chapter 27, the PCs, who are running low on food, have some good fortune and manage to kill a black grouse. The bird will provide sustenance for a couple of days. However, as the miles go by, water claims the title of most pressing issue. The companions have just finished the last of theirs when something unexpected happens. While in a forest of spruce, maple, and birch, they come across a clearing with a fallen log. Atop the log is a broken arrow. Dureni recognizes it right away as an elfin peace token or friendship marker. When he picks it up, an unknown elf walks into the clearing from the other side. He introduces himself as Cullen, and, warning the companions that he has 24 archers hidden in the trees, proceeds to question Dureni. Before long, they meet a second elf. Zitopi is Cullen's sister, and the only other female of her race that Achillea has ever seen. When the pair question Fairwind, asking if he comes from a place called Doroth, Achillea suddenly remembers something. Chapter 28, Part 1, Day 24. 1 week from their destination. Evening. Mythic event meaning: transform wounds. Party status: Achillea, 9 of 9 hit points. Cord, 14 of 14. Dureni, 12 of 12. Tentir, 13 of 15. Fairwind, 18 of 18. Supplies. The companions have 8 portions of food and no water remaining. Spells available. Achillea can cast Shrink ×2 and Glitter Dust. Cord can cast Entangle and Slow Poison.
Once upon a time, in the small village of Droth, there was a Fletcher named Tomar, who spent long hours crafting arrows from dawn until dusk.
Fabi's voice was as clear in Achillea's head as if he was standing right beside her.
What is this place, Doroth?
She found herself asking.
Is it near here, to the north?
It is a human settlement built into the caves to the northwest,
replied Cullen.
The Dorothi are said to be unpredictable folk, though my sister and I have never been there, nor have we met any of their number.
Achillea grew hopeful. This Doroth could be where Odok lived. In fact, that seemed very likely. She thrust her arm into her satchel and pulled out the sketchbook. The elf named Cullen had already said he didn't know the name Odok Zygog, but he might well recognize some of the places illustrated within his book. Flipping from page to page, she showed the bemused pair of elves each drawing in turn, but every illustration received only puzzled shakes of their heads. Despite that, her optimism was undiminished.
How far away is Doroth?
She asked.
4 days,
was Zitopi's reply. 4 days, and to the northwest, not the north, and the distance was a little less than Valkeen had given them to expect, but it was not so far off. Valkeen could have overestimated or misremembered. Zitopi's beautiful moss-green eyes were now fixed on Achillea, her mouth bunched up into a pout as though she were deciding whether or not to ask a question. Finally, her curiosity must have won out, because she suddenly asked,
"Forgive my ignorance, but
Her gaze flickered from Fairwind to the elven brothers, then to Cord, and then back to Achillea.
What manner of being are you?
This again. Achillea felt her face flush. She really did not have an answer. What made it so much worse was that she was standing beside an actual man made of wood. How could they be more unsure of her than him? Words aside, Zatopi's features and shape made Achillea hurt inside. This was the first female elf she had ever met, and while beautiful and exotic, Zatopi did not look anything like herself. Achillea's sense of identity had been slipping for some time, but meeting Zatopi threatened to dislodge it completely. For this reason, Achillea was silent, while the brothers talked with Colin and his sister over the next little while. Cord and Fairwind, who could not understand the elven tongue, were necessarily excluded from the conversation. The four elves exchanged information about the topography of the surrounding area, including directions to a nearby lake. They also discussed potential threats and even made a trade. Tentir gave his elegantly curved elven sword to Colin and received several packages of food in return. When their business was settled, everyone said their goodbyes, and Colin and Zatopi walked off into the woods. Achillea watched with renewed amazement as the young woman's elaborately woven cloak made the illusion of the undergrowth and surrounding woods swallowing her up. I wasn't sure what the PCs would learn from Colin and Zatopi, but it seemed reasonable after that reaction roll that they would come away with some information. So, what do this brother and sister know that they'd be willing to share? Determining that at random wouldn't make much sense, because I'd already committed to a number of truths. They knew where to find Doroth, but they didn't recognize Odok's name or his drawings. This tells me that they're familiar with this region, but only up to a point. The 7 of them are about the right size for a scouting party, so I can also say that the Navarre Wood Tribe's home is not too far away. It follows that they would know where to find water, and also about any dangers the party might face on their travels. To represent this, I'll give them advantage on the next couple of wandering encounter rolls. They also give some food, 8 portions of preserved rations sounds about right, and directions to a lake. If you're wondering why Colin and Zatopi were not especially shocked to meet Cord, I actually do have an answer, but I'm keeping that card face down for now. With all that said, I'll proceed with the hex crawls for the next day as the PCs change course and head northwest. For weather on day 25. A 15 is a fair summer day. Stumble upon. 10. Nothing there. For foraging. A 2 means they do find some food. A handful of brown mushrooms growing out of a rotten tree trunk. 4 portions of food are added to the PC's supply. The next check is for wandering encounters, but this one will be made with advantage. Rolling 2d6 and taking the lowest. A 3 and a 4. No encounters. The party reaches the lake on the evening of day 25, unhindered and more or less in good spirits. Chapter 28, Part 2. Day 25. 3 days from Doroth. Evening. Mythic event meaning. Transform wounds. Party status. Achillea, 9 out of 9 hit points. Cord, 14 of 14. Dureni, 12 of 12. Tentir, 14 of 15 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Fairwind, 18 of 18. Supplies. The companions have 16 portions of food and no water remaining. Spells available. Achillea can cast Shrink ×2 and Glitter Dust. Cord can cast Entangle and Slow Poison. The lake lay shimmering under the declining summer sun, its surface a deep crystalline blue that mirrored the cloudless sky. A few lonely pines and spruces lined the shore, with their branches swaying gently, and wildflowers clustered in shades of purple, yellow, and red. The shoreline was a rocky one, but this did not stop the companions from pulling off their boots, shaking them out, and stepping into the cold water, making sounds of shock and relief. Cord observed this, and he too waded into the lake, choosing a flat rock by the edge to sit on. Robin, always on his shoulder, jabbered trills into his painted ear. Once the companions had refreshed themselves and slaked their thirst, they each took a seat on the ground by the bank. Even with a few hours of daylight remaining, by unspoken consensus, it was clear that they would end the day's travel here, in this place of tranquil beauty. During the last hours of daylight, they kept their own counsel, with Dureni and Tentir choosing to swim, while Fairwind and Achillea read from their respective books. Achillea found it hard to concentrate on hers, however, as her mind kept drifting back to Aldve. Had he used the name Deroth in the Fletcher's fable as a kind of private joke? It wouldn't be much out of character for him, Achillea decided. Just then, a thought crossed her mind. Might Aldve have traveled the same route she had? Had he drank from this lake, visited the Kaymor ruins, or the lands of the Black Cloud tribe on his way to the place he eventually called home? No, she admitted to herself. It was unlikely. He would have had no reason to go from one place to the other in a straight line, as she had. More probably, he would have followed the river as long as possible, perhaps even by boat, and by his nature, Aldve would have taken pains to avoid any encounters. She looked over at Cord, sitting with his wooden feet in the water. Robin was still prattling at him, and the sight made her smile. Gratitude welled up in her breast. How lucky she was to have such good friends. In the morning, Achillea woke to find Cord still sitting in the exact same position on the natural rock seat he had taken up the previous evening. He had one hand held out over the water, with his first and second fingers spread in a V. Upon hearing Achillea wake, he twisted his body to look over and approached her. Immediately, she could see that his appearance had changed. His feet and right hand now had small leaves sprouting from them, and light patches of bark had appeared on his body in random places overnight.
Cord, you've changed again,
said Achillea, looking her friend up and down. She touched one of the leaves on the back of his hand. It was while she was admiring his newest transformation that the others roused and began to roll up their packs for the day's travel. When Achillea went to pick up her water skin, Cord took it from her and threw it away.
Cord, I need that, you know.
She went and fetched it.
What has gotten into you?
Cord could not give an answer, but once again he took the water skin from her hands and threw it away. By now, the rest of the party was watching.
Cord?
Achillea said again, reproachfully. When she turned to once again fetch the discarded container, Cord stopped her with a firm hand on her shoulder. He motioned to her to follow him as he walked some 20 paces away from the lakeshore, spread the fingers of his right hand in a V, and passed it over the ground as if scanning for something. After a moment, he stopped, touched the ground, and, before Achillea's eyes, a little spring of water spurted up from the ground. Let's talk about Cord for a moment. Today is an important episode for the Man of Wood, because today he achieves level 4. He'll get a d6 of new hit points, rolling for that. A 4. Could be worse, 14 hit points improves to 18. The construct doesn't have stats, so there's no chances for increase, which brings us to Druidic special abilities and spells. For abilities, he's supposed to get a new Sylvan language for each level above 2nd, but since that doesn't make much sense for Cord, I'm going to make some minor improvements in his connection with Robin. Since reaching level 3, Cord has been able to understand Robin when the bird talks, but for this level, I'm going to allow him to talk back, telepathically, over very short distances. I should mention that at this point, Robin still doesn't have much intelligence and can't carry out complex tasks, but it might be able to communicate a warning if there was danger nearby, something like that. Okay, that brings us to new spells. Rolling a d8 for this gives me Create Water. Well, I bet you guessed that one. And yes, I did go back and write the previous section after rolling up this spell. A quick reminder here that I am not allowing Cord to pick and choose his spells the way an actual druid could. Every day, his spent powers renew, the same as the day before. Although the companions were reluctant to leave the sanctuary of the lake with all its beauty and comforts behind, by late morning, they had done just that. They resumed their original single-file marching order, with Tentir in the lead. The young elf, who was now fully healed, albeit wearing scars and carrying himself with a somewhat less ebullient demeanor, had insisted. The day's march passed without incident, and the sun had shriveled to a red dot above a ridge to the west by the time the companions came together to talk and make plans for the near future.
3 more days should do it,
said Durrani.
We've nearly reached the end of your quest, Achillea. I was wondering, have you thought about what you might say to this Odoak person when you meet him?
Achillea realized she hadn't.
If he's willing to talk, I'll listen. If he isn't, I'll make him.
I would like to talk with all of you,
Fairwind had declared once they made camp.
Achillea, if you would be so kind as to translate.
She said she would.
How should I begin?
Said the cleric in an unsteady voice.
Achillea and Cord, you will remember that the wraith of Queen Anaya spoke a name. It was a name I did not wish to hear. Harlow was a novice who was assigned and indeed entrusted to my care and tutelage. The Queen accused me of failing this person, and perhaps I did. But I wish to have no secrets from you.
Fairwind waited while Achillea translated the words to Durrani and Tentir. Then he continued.
When I came to the land of the Caymores and took up residence in the ruins of the chapel, Harlow was with me, but he died on the very first night we arrived, and after that, I lived there, alone, with his memory and the knowledge that I might have saved him had I only been more careful. It is a thing that weighs heavily upon me, and I just wanted you all to know.
Later, when they had all unfurled their bedrolls and Tentir and Fairwind were snoring softly, Achillea poked Durrani with a finger.
Are you asleep?
No, I'm awake. What is on your mind?
I too have something to tell, but only to you, Durrani.
The elf turned over so that he faced her, and their noses were only a few inches apart.
All right.
After Fairwind had made his confessions to the group, Achillea had decided that it was time to unburden her own conscience, at least to Durrani, who she knew had been upset with her since the battle with the direwolves. Even though she had rehearsed it in her head for the last 10 minutes, the truth was harder to say than she expected when it came to saying it out loud.
Durrani, I have a confession. I guess it's a confession.
Durrani said nothing and simply waited for her to continue.
The thing is that I'm quite a bit younger than you and Tentir.
There was a pause, and then...
I know.
No, you don't understand. I mean, I'm only 21 years old.
I have known for some time. I heard you tell Valkeen when he asked.
Achillea had not expected that. She was silent for a few seconds before she asked,
Does Tentir know?
No, I have said nothing.
But what do you think it means?
I wish I knew, Achillea, but I am afraid I have no idea.
He turned away so that he was looking straight up at the sky and said,
I suppose it does not really matter. Try to get some sleep.
And just like that, I'm back to making hex rolls, although this time around I am adding a wrinkle. When I roll for weather, a 15 or better will trigger something in the narrative. Here comes the roll. A 9. Decent summer weather, but that's all. Okay, next up is Stumble Upon. I've got an 18. No result. For foraging, a 1 means the companions are lucky yet again. Tentir manages to shoot a squirrel for their dinner. Finally, a chance for a wandering encounter. The party still benefits from Cullen and Zatopi's advice and will get advantage one last time. Rolling 2d6 and taking the lowest number gives me a 2 and a 6. Luckily, no encounter. Chapter 28. Part 3. Day 27. 1 day from Deroth. Afternoon. Mythic event meaning: transform wounds. Party status: Achillea. 9 out of 9 hit points. Cord, 18 of 18. Dureni, 12 of 12. Tentir, 15 out of 15 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Fairwind, 18 of 18. Supplies. The companions have 12 portions of food. Water will no longer be tracked so long as Cord is able to create it magically. Spells available. Achillea can cast Shrink ×2 and Glitter Dust. Cord can cast Entangle and Slow Poison. Somewhat dubious, both Dureni and Tentir had held onto their water skins after Cord's demonstration, but the construct had repeated the trick the next day, and the day after that, too. Finally, the siblings had allowed that Cord really could provide for them, and their skins now hung at their belts, empty. Presently, the party was making their way over a hillside, strewn haphazardly with boulders. Legs and backs ached, and stomachs grumbled. Lunch had been the last pieces of Dureni's grouse, that, despite having been blessed by Fairwind, no longer tasted very good. When the group reached the top of the hill, they stopped to catch their breath. Even though Tentir had the best eyesight, it was Achillea who noticed it first.
Now that is truly something.
In the distance, cutting a jagged line against the sky, was a mountain range, its outline soft and indistinct. Pale purple peaks dissolved into the clouds, floating like memories on the horizon. Even from so far away, the mountains held an air of mystery and familiarity. Achillea knew the shape of those mountains well by now, after having studied the sketches in Odog Zygog's book of drawings so many times. This view was not represented among the pictures in that collection, but the shape of the mountains was unmistakable. All the party members agreed that it was truly something to behold, and for a few minutes they simply stood and took it in. This brings us to day 28. Once again, rolling for weather with the same chance for a trigger event. A 19. Okay, noted. Next is Stumble Upon. A 12 is nothing. Foraging? A 6 is a failure, but the PCs have some supplies now, so this is not particularly worrisome. A Wandering Encounter roll is next, with no advantage this time, so a 5 or 6 means potential danger. Here's the roll. Well, okay then. The mountains came back into view every time they crested a hill all that day, lifting the companions' spirits with every reappearance. At night, Dureni chose a huge spruce for them to sleep under. The companions pushed its fallen needles into soft mattresses and slept soundly while Cord and Robin kept watch. In the morning, the party members collected their belongings and continued their trek to the northwest. Hilly landscapes rolled and dipped. The air was freshly tinged with the scent of earth, and the quiet sounds of nature filled the space. There was nothing but the occasional chirp of a bird or hum of a bee, and the sound of their steps in the grass. Late in the morning, a great forest came into view. Like the previous, it was a mix of spruce, maple, and birch. The trees here were huge and ancient, and they clung to a dramatic terrain of steep crests and deep gullies.
I think that's where we'll find Doroth,
said Achillea, smiling and pointing up at some hills a few miles off. Her heart was full with optimism and resolve. She would find this Odok and make him undo whatever he had done to her Vapi. She just knew she could do it. They were trudging up a steep ridge when Dureni, up ahead, suddenly exclaimed,
Shujin's braid!
The outburst was immediately followed by the sound of the elf drawing his sword. Thank you for listening to Tale of the Manticore. If you would like to help to support the show, there are lots of ways to do so. You can recommend the show online or to friends. You can like and repost episode announcements on social media. You can pick up one of my offerings on DriveThruRPG, like my new One Shot in the Dark expansion module or Maker Kit. You can also buy a Tale of the Manticore t-shirt at www.beararts.store, and there is now a second design available in response to listener requests to have one without all the blood. Finally, you can rate or review the show on your podcatcher of choice. I'm very grateful for your support. At this point, I'd like to share a listener review. This one was left by Obadiah on Castbox. Obadiah writes, I love this show. I binge listened to the first season, but then had to take a long break before I could switch to the second, as I'd grown to love the characters in the first. Now nearing the end of season 2, and am dreading its end. Keep up the great work. You're inspiring a long-time player of RPGs to keep on with trying my hand at solo play. Hey Obadiah, I can't tell you how much it inspires and encourages me when I read a review like yours. In a medium where most communication goes one way, it means a lot to hear that my stories and characters are striking a chord with listeners out there in the world. So thanks for giving me that validation. I really appreciate it. And of course, good luck with your own solo games. I'm also indebted to my amazing cast of actors. This episode features Kai Ellen and David Cooper as Dureni and Fairwind, and in the role of Kalin and Zatopi, it's Moses Boyajian, the creator of Wallona's Cave YouTube channel, and Morg Stromer of Cryptid Creations. Thanks to all of this episode's actors. For those curious to learn a bit more about Tale of the Manticore, I keep a blog where I post all kinds of show and RPG related stuff, like art, maps, tables, crafts, and show notes. You can find it at taleofthemanticore.blogspot.com. To get in touch with me, I'm at taleofthemanticore.bluesky.social, Tale of the Manticore Podcast on Instagram, or taleofthemanticore@gmail.com. Our new network website, soloroleplayersnetwork.com, has been live since mid-May. Please have a look and sample something new if you're so inclined. The adventure will continue on the next episode of Tale of the Manticore. It's the story where chaos rolls. Hi, I'm John from Tale of the Manticore.
Maddie Searle from A Game of One's Own.
PJ from A Wasteland Story and the Solo Role Players podcast.
Simon from Legend of the Bones.
Brian Rideout from Swords Against Madness.
Carl from The Lone Adventurer.
And I'm Sharik from Roll By Myself.
And with our solo role-playing audio,
narrative,
actual play,
drama powers combined,
we are the Solo Role Players Podcast Network.
Usually accustomed to delving the depths,
scouring the desert,
surviving the wasteland,
or facing the dragon alone.
This time, we have teamed up to bring you a curated collection
of the best,
highest quality,
most dramatic,
and diciest
solo roleplay podcasts in the world.
There are dozens of us.
So if you're looking for your next solo role-playing adventure,
roll over to soloroleplayersnetwork.com.
Sample and subscribe to something that takes your fancy.
And discover your new favorite solo role-playing podcast.
See you there.